Welcome friends to another 40k video. Today we ask if the Custodes can be corrupted. In lore, prior to the End and the Death by Dan Abnett, part 1, the answer was no. Now we need to question that. Spoilers for the novel from here. We also get some great scenes of the Emperor unleashing his might, so let's get straight into it. It makes such perfect sense, such perfect, rational sense. Caecaltus isn't sure why it's taken him so long to appreciate it. The Emperor must die. He must. It's the only logical conclusion that anyone sane could reach. The Emperor must die. No, the Emperor must die. He's mad, a monster. Drunk on power, and his tyrannical rule has lasted far too long. He really must die. No, he must die now. It's the only way to stop the war. It's the only way to protect the human race. The Emperor must die immediately. Please stop. He must be put down and destroyed as quickly as possible. And who better to do this than the men built to guard his life? Who else is strong enough, close enough, please? Who else has the peerless clarity of mind to understand? It's all been arranged, the stage is set, everything is ready. The Emperor won't see it coming, because he's a mad monster. Get out. The cunning of Horus Lupercal knows no limits. There is a reason his father named him War Master. He's arranged it, made it all so easy. Look at the simple perfection of his stratagem. He set a trap so blatantly and painfully clumsy it can only be a trap. Stop, no. He laid bait so staggeringly unsubtle that it spoke to delusion, to a loss of faculty, to hubris and arrogance, and beckoned with such graceless inelegance that even the infallible master of mankind was convinced his first found had lost his wits. You will stop. And so the Emperor, proud and mad as he is, rushed into it, knowing full well it was a trap. The trap itself, in fact, was the ruse. There was no way in creation for Horus to surprise his father, so he didn't even try. Instead, he let his father surprise himself. His arrogance was his own trap. Now take the spear. Caecaltus Dusk resisted. He falls to the hands and knees, weeping and spitting blood. The feral ingenuity of Horus Lupercal has undone him entirely. It has undone them all. Choking on his own gore, he goes into violent convulsions as he tries to break the insidious control that has been placed upon him. He wants to get up, needs to get up and defend his king and master. Some of his brethren have collapsed, stricken like Caecaltus, but many of the other companions have already turned on the Emperor. Part of the brain of the custodian, the part that he's resisting with every fibre of his being, is telling Caecaltus to get up and join them. It is screeching at him. All it can do is lie there, shaking and fitting, witnessing the horror as a blood-dimmed vision, a vision of atrocity, of heresy, of natural law undone, and duty desecrated. The master of mankind fights for his life nearby. He decapitates Sentinel Warden Cleoton before Cleoton can skewer him with his lance. The Lord of Terror catches Sentinel Warden Casadris and Heteron companion Kintara on the backswing of his burning blade as they rush him. He deflects Shield Captain Damasar's halberd and cuts him in two. Icanatoi Chrismieri weeps as his master beheads him because he realizes that he's being coerced to do this. You will pay, you traitorous monster, the custodian watching says to himself. Shield Captain Avendro cartwheels away, Oromite splintering like golden glass, the long spray of his blood spattering the white hull of the Stormbird racked beside him. The trap was in us all along. There was nothing waiting for us at all. Your doors were open wide and your shields were down. There was no surprises waiting for our master except your profound mastery of the materium, which we have woefully underestimated. We knew your power was great, first found. We had no conception of how great. Host Marshal Telomenes shreds through a guardrail. His headless form plummets into the shadows of the underdeck subholes. The Emperor came here for anything, first found, so you prepared nothing. Misdirection. He was looking everywhere except at himself. With his attention held, you reached in and with formidable sleight of hand took away his readiness. You took away his focus and determination from the moment he arrived. You took it from us all. And just to jump in here, I like how they've recontextualized the pretty dumb plan of Horus just dropping his shields for the Emperor to come up and added it in a way that makes Horus looks a little more competent and sneaky. The Emperor's warblade, a brand of white fire, leaves burning magnesium afterstreaks in the air. You took away our keen edge by easing our minds into distraction and puzzlement, into reflection, into random thoughts. You did it with such precision we forgot ourselves. You did it with such concealed domination of even our master was not able to sense your mind at work. So even Horus's lack of action, how he's just saying things from different points in time, when speaking even to the Black Legion, as they will later be known. It was all a ploy. That's pretty clever too. Anyway, on with the video. Companion Kersol sinks to the deck and slides apart in 3 pieces like a perfect puzzle that will never be put back together. And then you twisted the pristine souls of the custodians, each one of us painstakingly restructured on a molecular level to withstand the corruption of chaos. But you took the incorruptible and you broke our minds, you broke the unbreakable. Sentinel, Trisarch, and Cytratus thrust at their master with guiding spears, firing their integrated bolters. We are shrieking because we understand what you have done to us. We are screaming because you have forced us to turn on the master we love above all things. We have served for so long. We are howling because we are fighting it and we cannot resist. The mass reactive rounds explode around the rippling shields of his will, and he slices off the power blades of their spears. The 2 custodians facing him get to take 1 step backwards before they are struck down. Sentinel Mendolis grazes the blade of his Castellan axe against the Emperor's right pauldron, throwing sparks. Companion Captain Bantix, wailing in lament, drives his warblade into the Emperor's ribs. Blood spurts. The custodian watching all this thinks in his mind, "You will pay, Horus. You will pay." The Master of Mankind reels then, shreds Vantix into ribbons with his power claw. He sidesteps Mendolis' second lunge in a swirling billow of cloak and runs his sword hilt deep into the shield captain Amalif's chest. The peerless blade splits Mendolis open. It splinters companion Heliod's visor and spins him off his feet. Go back into the mind of the custodian. Why was that? Why? First found. Was that why you made us your weapon of choice? The psychological effect? Did you think it would make him hesitate? Did you think it would make him vulnerable? You clearly do not understand the Emperor at all. Meanwhile, Vistarios Enteron drops to his knees, clutching his ruined torso. He crumples sideways. Sentinel Justinius misses with a 2-handed swing and does not live to try a second. He's the Emperor. He comes upon you in wrath, clad in his aspect of war. More than 30,000 years of work will not be undone by your malice and spite. That he is required by your will to kill his own perfect warriors does not make him falter or weaken his resolve. It just makes him all the more determined to vanquish you. Beam energies rip across the flight deck. The Master of Mankind is knocked down. O golden throne, O my King of ages, the custodian watching weeps. The Emperor has fallen against the side of another Stormbird, denting the armoured flank and shaking it on its launch rack. The squad closes in, encircling him. They are dubbed the Tharantoi Squad. The blood of their tears streams down the ornate goldwork of their Terminate armour, their Adrathic weapons cycling for a second salvo. He cannot let them hit him full beam again. The Emperor leans for a split second against the Warbird, fighting down the lingering pain so he can refocus his will. A squad of Hakanatoi vault the guardrails to the Master's right, raising up the launch ramp to flank him. The relic weapons of the Tharanatai glow with power. The Emperor raises his hand. Imperial lightning ripples out, a brilliant neon blue. The searing fog scorch the deck and hurl the Tharanatai into the air like sheaves of corn caught in a cyclone. 1 ricochets off a ceiling hoist, fragmenting. 2 tumble over the platform edge and punch down the shaft of the through-deck elevator. 2 hit a racked Stormbird so hard that armoured bodies punch through the hull like breacher rounds. 4 hit the deck with enough force to leave craters. 1 explodes. The power system of his Adrathic beamer jarred to critical instability. The catastrophic detonation throws others off their feet. They sprawl on the deck against Kekaltus and the other handful of companions, convulsing in resistance seizures. Kekaltus rolls onto his side, shaking. He tries to rise, but he can't. He tries to reach for his spear, then pulls back his hand. He knows that if he touches it, the urge to use it will be too strong against his master. He sees the Hakanatai bearing down the ramp on his master's right. He sees his master turn and look at the deck supervisor's console on the chamber wall 100 meters away. He sees the Emperor tense and spear the console with a telekine pulse, and then duck to his knees. The ramp's iron launch catapult fires the Stormbird. He is thrown against it. It slams over him, past him, fueling the cables stretch and snap in clouds of sparks. Its engines and systems are dead, so it is merely dead weight, slung by the iron rail's accelerator. The Stormbird mows down and pulverizes the Hakanatoi on the ramp. It keeps going, starting to tumble down the entire kilometer length of the rampway, an expanding, seething fireball, and finally obliterates, at its impact, the invisible integrity fields at the deck. The Emperor rises to his feet. Loss, bitter, pain and fury have broken the lulling spell of indecision wove by the warp. His will is now entirely clear and engaged. Before any more of the screaming custodians can move or rise or act, he enforces it fully, his might and will. The deck lamps dim, guide lights blow out, consoles short and explode, cables spit cinders and sag from the ceiling systems. All the custodians still alive drop. Kicaltus collapses onto his face. They're all screaming and writhing. It is no longer in torment or grief. It is simply in pain. Pain will do it. The Emperor applies more. Shrieking, Kicaltus can hear his master's booming wrath inside the buckling bones of his skull. The voice says, I will burn your touch out of them first found. Do you see what I am now? Do you see what is coming for you? Kicaltus feels his master's ease, his will. The pain ebbs. The shame will never go away. 39 of the Proconsul's company are dead. The rest sprawl trembling. Some are too broken in mind and body to continue. The Emperor says, if you can, rise and stand with me. Rise now. Kicaltus hauls himself to his feet. 27 other to claws their way, slowly upright. They cannot look at the master of mankind. Such is their abject remorse. Kicaltus feels his lord reach out with his mind, sight, and scan each one of them. Blink fast. Kicaltus feels it wash over him. The scan hunts for lies, for lingering deceit, for the smudges of remaining implanted treachery. There is none. The custodians have regained their grip, though none will ever be the same again. Take up your arms, the Emperor commands, and they obey. And then, as Kicaltus looks on the rest of the companions who cannot get up, he feels the Emperor extend a small measure of grace to each, a final soothing thought to ease their suffering. Then, the Master of Mankind, ever pragmatic, ends them quickly and without pain, a needle of will to each that triggers a cataclysmic, intercerebral hemorrhage and instant death. And just a little observation here, I find it interesting that the Emperor can wipe them out so easily with his mind because he is their creator and will thus know their weaknesses. Then we carry on. The light flickers, stuttering the embarkation deck between twilight and sickly glare in a fitful pulse. The Emperor reaches out to Kicaltus and asks, Proconsul? Kicaltus walks with his master between gilded corpses towards the main hatch, and the 27 companions follow him. And so the Emperor's companions, as he lands on the vengeful spirit, are quickly cut down in number under the pretty smart plan of Horus Lupercal. So I'd like to go over two key pieces first. First, the quote, the Custodes were painstakingly restructured on a molecular level to withstand the corruption of chaos, but you took the incorruptible and you broke our minds. You broke the unbreakable. And this one, the scan hunts for lies, for lingering deceit, for the smudges of remaining implanted treachery. Other than the references of mentally taking control of the Custodes, the text largely suggests it was mental corruption that was brought into play here. So they can be corrupted, but they didn't burst with pus of maggots from their golden armour. So it seems to be mental manipulation by Horus that twists their will, and perhaps this surprises the Emperor as he thought they were beyond this. And one more element I want to mention before we wrap the video. To be fair, it's mentioned in the actual chapter quote as well. They are on the vengeful spirit, which at this time is the heart and focus from which the warp corruption has consumed terror, stopping time and twisting dimensions, so that an unprecedented level of warp power is in the hands of the primordial gods and through Horus. So I think that the Custodes, yes, they can be corrupted, but only in very rare and exceptional circumstances when a high level of warp power, such as this one, is brought into play. And if memory serves, and when I first read this, the Emperor does have to maintain a psychic shield of protection, I'll call it, around them from this point onwards, so that they are not subject to Horus's will again. But you listen to me talk, and thank you for that. What do you think? What do you think to this explanation? Do you think this breaks some Custodes law, or are you happy with the result? Because it is a possibly one-off occurrence in all of the novels that cover the Custodes. And one other thing, I must admit, I did fanboy out a lot listening to the Emperor of Mankind fight the Custodes. Not a fight that I knew I wanted to see, but when it came, I did want to see it. So on that fun thought, guys, I'll end today's video. Drop me a comment down below, drop me a like if you want to as well.